Hi, guys. So happy to have you here with us today. I am joined by Liz Coleman, who is a Navy spouse and the Associate Director of Enrollment Training and Admissions. Liz, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
No, it's great to chat with you. And before we get started, in case people aren't reading our highlights, can you just like tell us a little bit about what it is you do, who you work for, and run us through like a day in your life?
Absolutely. So I actually work for an institution based out of California. So I'm currently the Associate Director of Enrollment Training and Admissions. So I oversee all of our admissions and enrollment training, processing, student success, things like that. I do work remote. So I am based on the other side of the country. So having that remote flexibility has just been amazing. So I get to assist enrollment advisors with assisting students figuring out what programs they're interested in, going into college. Most of the students that we work with are full-time working professionals. And interestingly enough, we have a huge veteran population. So a lot of my day is working with our VA team on campus to make sure that we're serving those students to the best that we can. But yeah, I love what I do. It's really rewarding being able to work in enrollment and admissions. And this has been mostly my career. I actually just stepped into this role this past year as the director. So yeah, I'm thrilled to be able to be here today.
Well, congratulations. That's awesome news.
Thank
And
you.
you mentioned that when you first found out that your job was going to be remote, you were disappointed, but then you came around to it once the pandemic hit. So you seem like you'd be the perfect person to tell us like some of the pros and cons of working in a remote environment. And I know we were chatting about in the green room about the frustrations of our dogs being our best friends sometimes. But are there other pros and cons?
Absolutely. So going back to just being new to all things remote work. So I actually got my first remote job during one of our first PCSs to Florida. I did not know that it was a remote job when I accepted the role. And I was immediately disappointed because at that point, remote work was very new. It wasn't common. It was 2019. So I actually got my role right before the pandemic when it became cool to work from home. So I like to think that I'm a trendsetter in that regard. But I immediately assumed, well, I'm working from home, I'm going to miss out on, work relationships because prior to this, I'd always worked in an office setting or in college, I worked for a hardware store. So I was always around people.
Right.
And so I didn't know what that would look like being by myself in my home. So I thought that I would basically be a recluse. I'd be on my own little island. Again, I would only talk to my dog. And then I thought that I'd have cabin fever because I would never leave my home. And to an extent, some of those were true if I didn't work at making it the best that it could possibly be and the beauty of remote work. So in regards to just different pros, I could spend all day talking about it, but I would say the biggest pro, especially as a military spouse, is probably the work location. Again, I can take my job wherever we go. So if we PCS somewhere, I take my job. I don't have to start over from scratch. So that in itself is just a huge blessing to our family. It's fantastic for my career as well, not having to feel like I'm having to start over, climb the ladder. And especially as, a young woman professional, that has been a game changer for me and just truly, truly thankful for that opportunity. Pros is it going to be being able to take my job to visit my parents. So if my husband is gone, whether it's a deployment or different trainings, I will just pack up the car and to my parents' house and I'll work from their home office. I don't have to use my vacation time, which as we know can be very limited. You don't want to have to use all your vacation time, but solely visiting family. You want to actually go to the beach or go to the mountains. And so having that flexibility has been huge. But then I think lastly, going back to the career, just opportunities, I think military spouses, this is just such a huge struggle with military families of having to say, well, I love my spouse and we're in this together and we've signed up for this. So, the military is sending us to this location. So I have to quit my job and then I have to start the job search all over again, which can be exciting for some, but it's a burden. It truly is a burden, as a professional financially, with this economy that we live in, a lot of times you do have to have a dual income household. And so keeping that in mind, it just takes away a lot of the stress of that. And then lastly, just for time's sake, I'll say a huge pro is just the mental health side of things. I think when you're working in an office setting, taking time off is, you almost get like a slap on the hand, and you're viewed, well, you're not a strong worker and you should have that grit to work all the time, or you shouldn't take your 15-minute breaks, or you should work during your lunch. There seems to be that, just that mindset there. Whereas with my role, I am highly, highly encouraged to take my vacation time. I'm even encouraged to just press the pause button. If you're a little stressed out, go outside, take a walk, go play with your dog, go get a smoothie, whatever you need to do. And it's again, it's encouraged. I'm not put down for that at all. And the beauty of it is I can just relax in my own home. So I don't have to go anywhere if I don't want to. I can just crash on the couch and take a 15-minute nap and then get back to it. So those in itself is just, it's such a blessing. And I want more spouses to be able to have that opportunity just because of the freedom that it's given me. In regards to cons, kind of going back to my first statement to where you could feel like you're on your own little island, it can feel lonely at times. I think what I learned very, very quickly is that you have to put yourself out there with whatever organization, in my case, university, business, whatever it may be that you're working for. If you're working remote, utilize whatever asset that your team has. So we use Microsoft Teams, so we chat daily, or sending random memes or GIFs, whatever it may be throughout the day. And that in itself has helped me to form really, really strong relationships, which I've never met these people in person, and I consider them some of my dearest friends. And so I think it's all about what you put into it. But for anybody that's considering remote work, if you are an introvert like myself, please put yourself out there. You will love it. And then you can just get back and close your laptop when you're done for the day. Other con, it would probably be having just a work-life balance in regards to your office space. So we were fortunate enough to be able to have a guest room that we just called my office. So I have a set space where when I'm there, I'm working. And when I close the door, I'm back at home. And some people, they just don't have that luxury, and that's totally fine. I know I have several coworkers where they actually they have their office in their master bedroom, which obviously is not ideal. They have it in their living room. And there's nothing worse than sitting on the couch and just staring at your computer when you're trying to binge the newest Netflix show, like what we were talking about earlier. And so it's really important that you set, okay, this is my work hours, this is my home hours, and I'm not going to let those two interfere. And I'm going to have to be strict with myself. And that's to prevent work burnout, but then also prevent that cabin fever of like, oh, I'm always at home or I'm always at work. And so it's just really important to have those balances. But yeah, I love remote work. Again, it's provided my husband and I so many opportunities. It's provided me growth in my career. And I truly wouldn't be in the role that I am now without it. And I would love to help other spouses be able to find those roles too.
No, that's so great because I mean, you've really come to it like a duck into water. But I mean, I think if people have read your highlight, they know that like what you graduated with in terms of your degree and where you ended are very different.
So
So now that you've embarked on a career in admissions, how does this impact your future career planning? Like, do you see yourself going back into the mental health counseling space?
that's a fantastic question. And it's something I consider a lot, especially given that I work in higher education. So my goal and job is to literally coach people into, okay, what do you want to do next? And like I mentioned earlier at the university that I work for, we have a huge veteran population. And so it's so rewarding and exciting to be able to help those individuals like, okay, you just got out of the military. What do you want your degree to be in? How are you going to utilize your benefits to step into whatever career field you think is next? Or even if for non-military students, as civilians, if you want a career change, and that's always, always possible. I think a lot of times we think, oh, well, I got into this, so I'm kind of stuck in it for life. And that's just not the case. And so I think about it a lot. I thoroughly enjoy what I do now. It's incredibly rewarding, but I am always thinking about what's next. I think being exposed to so many veteran students, and of course being a military spouse, that definitely rings my heart a good bit. for, kind of what I might be passionate about. So I could see myself, maybe diving into more of like the VA benefit side of things for
Mm.
education and being able to support those students. But then my husband and I, we are actually huge Dave Ramsey fans. So when I graduated, I had a ton of student loan debt, and I don't regret it by any means, because it has helped me to get the degree that I have, to get me to where I'm at. And then obviously allowing me to be able to coach people and counsel them on how to go to school more wisely, and how to maybe not utilize student loans as much, but if you do, how to pay them off as quickly as possible. And so through that, I've become a master financial coach through Dave Ramsey's plan. And so with the goal of really helping military spouses know how to budget, how to manage their finances, empowering those spouses who may be at home and maybe have a back seat to the finances, empowering them to be more knowledgeable about, what their money looks like, and, investments and what that looks like. So I could see myself going a lot of different areas. Mental health counseling is probably not one of them. And I think that was something that we were chatting about earlier, is that you can have an idea of what you may want to do, but then life just has other plans. And then you find that you have more goals and more dreams, with what you've been exposed to. So I'm excited to see what the rest of my career has in store. But for now, I'm very, very happy with what I do.
No, I love it. And I love your outlook on life, because you're definitely somebody who allows opportunity to come in, like you're open to it. And like, and you're not so rigid and this is what I thought I was going to do, so I must do this.
Yeah.
That's really something I look up to, because I'm a bit rigid and I just need to let go of the things I don't need to hang on to. So I appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate the military for kind of forcing that on me. I am
Right?
definitely more of a rigid person, but they take that and they're just like, nope, we'll run with it. We'll do something else. So it's definitely helped me have more of an open mind to things.
Our family's Air Force, so flexibility is the key to air power is a huge saying in our house.
Yes,
And like Marines, right?
absolutely.
Semper Gumby. So I think military spouses get it. So I love that.
Yeah.
When we asked you what your one of the best resources for you in terms of military spouse career employment resources, you mentioned LinkedIn.
Mhm.
So can you tell us a little bit more about that and share some tips about using LinkedIn as an effective career resource?
Yeah, absolutely. So prior to my role as the associate director, I was an enrollment advisor. And so part of my job was just having daily conversations with students who were interested in our programs, helping them through the application, things like that. But my time with them was always capped as soon as they were admitted. And so I'd start off having all these amazing conversations, meeting these professionals from across the country. And I came across a military spouse, actually. And so this was, gosh, back in 2019 or 2020. And we just had the best conversation. And I was like, I want to be able to follow her, because I'm never going to know truly when she graduates unless she emails me and tells me, because we were kind of in admissions, you're in your own little bubble. And then they go through, student academic advising and their professors, the registrar's office, all the things. So we miss out on a lot of the fruits of our labor, per se. And so I was able to connect with her on LinkedIn. And I'm not going to lie, it was very unnerving doing that. I'm more of a timid, introvert, shy person. So putting myself out there was a little awkward, but I think just being able to follow her success made me want to connect with others that I was working with. And so naturally, it was more than just military spouses or, veterans that were looking to go back to school. It was other professionals. And so just being able to see that I made just a small impact in them getting their degree and then them choosing their career and they're climbing the ladder, I think that's super rewarding. But especially being able to see other military spouses be successful, I think there's just a very negative stigma that, well, if you're a military spouse, then that's your job. And sometimes that is the case, but we do so much more. And I know we were talking about this earlier. We take care of things back at home. Some of us are homemakers, some of us are full-time moms, some of us work full-time in whatever capacity, volunteer hours. And so we do so, so much. And so being able to lift each other up and encourage them in a public space, I think is super important. And so that's actually how I found this page as well. And so it's just such an honor to be able to be mentioned today. And it was awkward to put yourself out there, but I was hoping, like, you know what, Liz, if my story of saying, hey, I was able to find this remote job and it's provided myself freedom. And don't be afraid to just apply for all the jobs. Or if you are looking for a remote role and you want to reach out to me for different connections, like that in itself is just so worth it. So don't be afraid to put yourself out there on LinkedIn. As awkward as it may feel, it will give you so much joy and, opportunities later.
No, and it's very inspirational because you have such a great outlook on just the career outlook. And, we generally tend to connect with people who are like midway to transitioning to retired, and you're starting out. And
Yeah.
so I love talking to you and like seeing that you have it all together. So I think it's great.
Uh, I don't, but thank you.
Well, you show a really good facade, but
Thank
like, I
you.
think it's great to know that, like, for younger people to be out there going, oh, someone is doing it.
Mhm.
So I think that's wonderful. Um,
Absolutely.
thank you so much for your time today. And thank you to our friends from USA for making this conversation possible. We hope that if you have a story to tell, you will also share your story. I will see you back here next week. Bye, guys.